Daniel Gavronsky. I'm standing on the Capitol grounds here in Des Moines, Iowa, to talk about a couple of really serious issues. Today is primary day here in Iowa, where people are going on both the Republican and Democratic sides to go to pick their nominees for the general elections come this November, as far as the local members of Congress in the local state, the senators and assembly people, and also the county sheriffs in many cases. It's a very important day. It's something that everyone has a right to do. Every U.S. citizen has a right to participate in this process. And in Iowa, it's very easy to vote. It's very hard to cheat. Your votes count here in Iowa. And during these troubling times with the coronaviruses and the national mourning that we are dealing with as a nation over the senseless murder of a man in Minneapolis by the name of George Floyd, it's time that we need to find the things that bring us together as a country, as a culture, and as a nation more than the things that could potentially divide us. Since the beginning of the idea of the United States, we have been in search of that more perfect union. It doesn't say the perfect union in our Constitution. It says we the people in order for a more perfect union, which means it's a process, not a set in stone that we have done it. Over the last 250 some years, I think we're up in the 270s at this point, I think 74, 75, we are still working on this idea of more perfect union. But one of the things that came as to be a national motto is "Don't tread on me," which should include our necks and our backs, and a symbol of a snake, with the meaning in that said, "Together we'll survive or perish." And that's an important message, because we're only going to be able to do this if we work together. And I think everyone agrees with me that if we fight with each other, we're never going to come across any solutions. And it's very hard to have a dialogue if everyone we need to be able to come together and come up with solutions are scared to talk about the very difficult issues that affect so many people. This is not just a single group of Americans' issue. This is everyone's issue here in the United States. Now, last summer, I got the privilege of spending a lot of time with a really good friend of mine, Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey. Now, Senator Booker has worn many hats. He was a public advocate when he first got out of law school. He arrived back in Newark wanting to help disenfranchised people get better lives. And he says he got his real education on the streets of Newark when the people he trying to help schooled him on what life is really like for people who living in these areas. He also talked about a really important time in his family's life before he came to the scene, about when there was a lawyer in New Jersey who was watching what was going down in Alabama and Mississippi in the Deep South, where peaceful protesters who were just trying to walk across the bridge were attacked by law enforcement that was preventing them from the simple task of walking across the bridge. During this march, this protest down in the South, there was a future member of Congress that still serves today that was there. This march didn't consist of anyone's house getting burnt down, and didn't involve any fires, any destruction of public property. A clear and undeniable demonstration of peaceful assembly and trying to speak to the injustices that they feel like they were being fed. And the actions by those law enforcement officers down in the Deep South convinced a white lawyer in New Jersey to do something. That something was to help Cory Booker's parents finally find housing in a good neighborhood that allowed them to have a son who will later become a U.S. Senator. Now, I'm standing here in the Iowa Capitol, a state that has done a lot to help push the United States towards that more perfect union. We were the first state to elect a female mayor in Oskaloosa. She decided to decline results, and they had to have a special election because she felt like it wasn't her time. But the very next city that, sizable of over 10,000 people or more was Iowa City. In Iowa, they elected a female mayor. One of the very first mosques in North America is in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Leading into the U.S. Civil War, the state of Iowa per capita put more soldiers into that fight than any other state combined, north or south, to free people who were found themselves by no fault of their own in bondage. That's something that Iowa has done. Iowa puts forth a great emphasis on your character and your willingness to be a part of the solution as a way of finding success. Now, I'm very grateful that Senator Booker was able to get so far in his career, and I think there's a very likely chance that he will someday be president. But not because of riots, not because of burning down property and destruction of businesses, especially black-owned businesses, but by showing humanity to the people who might even view him as a threat. I consider Cory Booker and Tim Scott good friends of mine. I appreciate all the work they've done in Congress, not because of the color of their skin, but because they're doing it for the right reasons. They're not doing it for the notoriety. People might say they are, but they're good people, and they're trying to help other good people be better. For those of you who feel like you're oppressed, there's been a lot of oppression in this world against every person of every different creed and walk of life. But in the course of human events, we have a chance to make things better. And we do things better by working together, by coming together. Now, in Hungary, they were under the oppression of both Nazism and communism from the late 1930s up until the early 1990s. They have a museum there in Budapest that's called the House of Horrors, and like scary movie horrors. And at the very end of this museum, you come to this big plaque. This is right before you walk out of the building. This is the very last thing you see. It's a huge plaque that takes up the entire wall, and it has the names and addresses of every single person in Hungary that was murdered, oppressed, killed, or missing from these oppressive regimes. And right next to those names are the names of the people who killed them. And Hungary, for those of you who want a little bit of history, in 1975 there was a water polo match between Hungary and the Soviet Union, where several horses were drowned and many people ended up getting badly hurt because there was animosity between the Soviets, how the Soviets were oppressing, communism was oppressing the Hungarians. But on the list of those names, of all the murderers, not a single one of them is a non-Hungarian name. We have to understand that there's no innocent party in these atrocities. Not a single one. There's individuals that get caught up into it, like George Floyd, who I don't see anyone, and I have not heard of anyone, defend the actions of that officer. That officer is in jail. He's been charged with murder in the third degree because they believe that would be a almost guaranteed conviction. I do think they can move it up to murder too, but I want to see a conviction. And so I support, charging him with murder 3 if they can't get murder 2. There's no one who supports this guy, this officer, who I believe knowingly and joyfully murdered a man in broad daylight. I will stand for any protester who wants to protest injustices of senseless murder like that. I don't know anyone who wouldn't. But I want to get back to Cory Booker's message really quickly. I know I don't speak for Cory in this instance. He has not endorsed this video whatsoever. But I liked hanging out with that guy because he has a good heart. And I really liked his message. I don't support Cory Booker for president this time around. But I think his message was probably one of the best I've ever seen. Because to come together and to make the improvements and to benefit people, to make people's lives better, not just for whites or blacks or Hispanics or mixed people. We need everyone's lives to be better. This is the United States of America. We the people, not we these people or that people. And in the last 270 years, we have worked to include more and more people because that is the aspiration of the idea of the United States. So I want everyone to rise together, because I believe that's the best way we're going to be able to heal as a nation, put this poor innocent man to rest together. And I also want to close with, a couple years ago in Texas, I believe it was Houston, there was a black police officer that had a Facebook post about how important it was for people to come together, and that he felt in uniform that people were scared of him because he was a cop, but that when he was out of the uniform, people were also intimidated by him because he was black. And he left an amazing post, and I was trying to find it because I wanted to read it to you guys tonight, because it was a very powerful meaning. Sadly, he was taken by a terrorist who was targeting cops. That terrorist happened to also be a black person. Someone's skin color has nothing to do with their ability to be a valued member of our society. I would prefer to not think of people as being African Americans or Asian Americans or Jewish Americans. Once we have that U.S. passport, we're Americans. And I really hope to see more people look at it that way, instead of trying to find the things that divide us by either our gender or our sexual orientation. I don't want to divide us by the places of our birth, our religions, how we pray. I don't want to see people being judged because of the way they look or how they dress. We need to rise together, like Cory Booker said, because I think that's the best way forward. And I look to everyone contacting Cory Booker and everyone contacting Tim Scott, because these are two black leaders that really care about not just the black community and the minorities, but everyone together. And they say it's everyone together. It's not one group of America versus another group of America. We are all in it together. And so I ask for everyone's support for peaceful protests, constructive protests that seek a means to an end, to get people to come together and talk, to come up with solutions, to better training, or there's a lot of different things. There's endless possibilities. But when the destruction and the mayhem only deters and detracts from the message that the people who are honestly trying to show solidarity with the Floyd family, you're alienating everyone who would need to be able to come up with better solutions. We're not all the enemy. We're not all based on our skin color or our religion or where we're born or what state we live in, red state, blue state. Some states on the map are purple. I don't understand it. Green, yellow, blue, red. You look at the earth, it's all green and blue. Some ice at the top. But we're better than this. And I believe that the Iowa model is a good example. And I want everyone to give support to those who seek justice, to seek tranquility, and to seek inclusiveness in a form of inclusiveness by the word inclusive, not by gender, not by sexual orientation, not by skin color or political ideology. Together means together, and together we will rise. Thank you, everyone. This is Nathaniel Gavronsky from the Capitol grounds in Des Moines, Iowa. Stay healthy, stay wealthy, stay wise, and as always, stay classy, Iowa.